All right, how's everybody doing? Positive and productive, I hope. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sticking with me. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm not sure about the audio on this device, but a few things I want to do with this. Make sure you share the content with friends, family, anybody you think the content is relevant to. Remember, local elections are more important than national elections, but dollars are stronger than votes. They won't stop until we stop them. Liberation comes at a cost. Who's willing to pay for it? So I'm doing this segment because, listen, I use AI, large language models, other versions of AI a lot. I do. I realize that they are a tool, but they're not the end all be all. For instance, I use firearms a lot, but the firearm isn't the end all be all for self defense. You have to know how to use it, you have to train with it, you have to study it, you have to be proficient with it. Same thing with AI. You have to study with AI, you have to train with AI, and you have to be proficient on AI. Just really quickly, Google something uh, called large language model hallucinations, or AI hallucinations. You might have to do a little digging and research, but AIs actually hallucinate, ladies and gentlemen. So the reason why I'm doing this and the reason why I'm saying all of this is because if you're not careful, AI will give you the wrong answers. And you'll think it's correct because it came from AI. Like, we're all in this day and age where we trust what we just see on Google, the TV, Chat GPT, Gemini, all these different things. We just trust the data. We ask the question, we get the answer. It has to be right because AI told me, right? And everybody knows you don't ask Siri for directions because she'll have you going down the street to someplace that doesn't exist. I've been there before. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. I just tell you it's somewhere. Maybe it's on X, maybe it's on Rumble. Hopefully you're subscribed. So there was a post I was responding to, and there's a little bit to read here. So I actually had to make AI, focus on exactly what I was saying here. But I was responding to something, and I said, people sell their EBT in food stamps. Remember the viral case of the woman who brought bottles of water with food stamps, poured them out in the parking lot, and then she sold them. She sold the plastic for money. So, answering that, it says the post challenges the notion that SNAP food stamps is foolproof against misuse by noting common fraud like selling EBT cards on the black market and exploiting bottle deposits for cash. It invokes a 2025 viral TikTok scandal where a mother brought soda with SNAP benefits, dumped it into a Walmart parking lot, then to redeem empty cans, leading to her benefit termination after public outlash. So I said, well, analyze my comment. I was just doing something with AI. So it said, well, let's break it down. So the Chustas comment highlights two main points about the SNAP program. One, misuse of SNAP benefits. The comment mentioned that people sell their EBT, electronic benefits transfer cards, and food stamps, referencing a viral case where a woman brought bottles of water with food stamps, poured the water out in a parking lot, and then recycled the plastic bottles for cash. This anecdote is used to illustrate the SNAP benefits can be exploited despite the program's intended purpose. So now I just wanted to give you guys clarification. This is the whole point of this right here. So when I asked it to analyze my comment and rate my comment, one of the last things it said, this anecdote is used to illustrate SNAP benefits can be. So I had a problem with this being considered an anecdote and or anecdotal. So this was the problem that I had. And then it says strengths, anecdotal evidence. The mention of the viral TikTok case provides a concrete example of potential misuse, which can resonate with readers and highlight a real world issue within the SNAP program. Again, it said it's anecdotal. Weakness in consideration, overgeneralizing. The common instances of fraud might overgeneralize the problem. So this is where my problem lied. So this is where, and we'll just go down. So and the conclusion about, and it says the Chustas comments effectively point out inconsistencies of SNAP benefits misuse, fraud, which are valid concerns supported by some data. However, it risks oversimplifying these issues without considering the broader context of the program's benefits and the efforts to mitigate fraud. So I said, let's debate and break down anecdotal versus empirical. To categorize something as anecdotal because it is one person's experience is a mischaracterization, because by default empirical means evidence or numbers are utilized to gauge and substantiate. So so once so once one's experience once one's experience can still be measured, gauged, and substantiated, which makes it empirical evidence, not anecdotal, because by default to be anecdotal would be one's experience with which one cannot quantify why or how the outcome. Your point raises an interesting distinction between anecdotal and empirical evidence, and it's worth exploring this further to clarify the differences and potential overlaps. Let's break it down step by step. Definitions and distinctions. Anecdotal evidence. Anecdotal evidence refers to information derived from personal accounts, stories, or isolated examples rather than from systemic research or from statistical analysis. It is often subjective and lacks the rigor of controlled studies. For instance, if someone says, I know someone who used SNAP benefits to buy non-food items, that is anecdotal because it is based on a single unverified personal experience. Empirical evidence. Empirical evidence, on the other hand, is based on observation, experience, or experiment that can be verified through scientific method. It involves data that can be measured, quantified, and replicated. For example, a study showing that 1.6% of SNAP benefits are trafficked, as mentioned in the web results, is empirical because it is based on measurable data collected over a period of time. Your argument that a single experience can still be empirical if it is measured, gauged, and substantiated. This is a valid point to consider, but requires careful unpacking. And we'll read a little bit more because I want to get to how it almost mischaracterized my critique of its critique. Single experience as empirical evidence. If a single experience is documented, measured, substantiated through verifiable means, example, video evidence, official reports, or legal proceedings, it can indeed contribute to empirical evidence. For instance, the viral TikTok case you mentioned could be considered empirical if it was substantiated by official actions like the termination of benefits and documented in ways that others could verify. However, this does not make the entire category of one person's experience empirical. It makes that specific substantiated instance empirical. So let's stop right there, and I want to critique something. Because it says, for instance, the viral TikTok case you mentioned could be considered empirical if it was substantiated by official actions, like the termination of benefits, and documented in a way that others could verify. If we go back, it actually was because the woman, because of backlash, her benefits were terminated. And we'll go back to do it just because I have to prove what I'm saying. I don't like to just say things and then not prove exactly what I'm saying. Right here, it invokes a 2025 viral TikTok scandal where a mother brought soda with SNAP benefits, dumped it into a Walmart parking lot to redeem empty cans, leading to her termination after public backlash. So, in Grok's own answer, it told me that based on the evidence or the criteria in which I'm judging it to be empirical and not anecdotal, it gave me that because she did it, it leading to her benefit termination after public outlash. So people looked into the case, a social worker or whoever handles it looked into the case, and then she was then reprimanded for what she did. Let's go down a little bit. It says empirical evidence, on the other hand, is based on observation, experience, or experiment that can be verified through scientific methods. It involves data that can be measured, quantified, and replicated. For example, a study showing that 1.6% of SNAP benefits are trafficked, as mentioned in the web results, is empirical because it is based on okay, so not that point right there. Um, Your argument that a single experience can still be empirical if it's measured, gauged, and substantiated. This is a valid point to consider, but requires care. Okay, let's go up a little bit. Damn, what did it say? That I think we're down here a little bit. I think it was right here. The key issue with anecdotal evidence is not just that it comes from one person's experience, but it lacks the breadth, systematic collection, and statistical analysis that characterize empirical evidence. For example, saying people use SNAP benefits to buy non-food items based on one story is anecdotal because it does not represent a broader use. Okay, that's not where we were at, but we went further. We went further in here. Because I actually had to say so. So I actually had to double down on what I said. So in this instance of me saying you mischaracterize my account of the woman on TikTok as anecdotal is incorrect because it can be measured and quantified. Not to say that all one-off experiences are empirical, but it goes to show that one person's experience can represent a larger empirical data set. I understand your point, and let's refine our discussion based on your clarification. You're arguing that the specific instance of the woman on TikTok where she bought bottles of water with SNAP benefits and then recycled them for cash can be considered empirical evidence because it was measured, quantified, and substantiated, example, through video evidence, public backlash, and determination of her benefits. This single experience you suggest can represent a larger empirical data set, even if not all one experiences are empirical. Reevaluation. Your specific claim. You assert that labeling this instance as anecdotal is incorrect because it can be measured and quantified. Let's break this down. Measurement and quantification. The event was indeed documented via TikTok video, quantified in terms of the actions taken, buying water, dumping it, recycling bottles, and had a measurable outcome, loss of benefits. This aligns with empirical evidence as it involves observable and verifiable data. Representation of larger data set. You suggest that this single experience can represent a larger empirical data set. This is a crucial point. If this incident is part of a broader pattern or trend that can be empirically verified, example through data on SNAP benefits misuse, then it contributes to the data set. However, the challenge lies in whether this single instance can alone be generalized to represent the entire SNAP program or a significant portion of it. So, and it has a lot more. It wanted to give me a large talk off, but let's go to the conclusion. Conclusion. Your correction is valid in that the TikTok incident, due to its measurability and quantifiability, video evidence, official action can be considered empirical for that specific case. However, the broader claim that it represents a larger empirical data set requires additional context and data to be fully substantiated. The initial characterization as anecdotal was based on the lack of immediate connection to a larger data set, but your point about its empirical nature due to measurement and quantification is well taken. To summarize, the TikTok incident is empirical in the sense that it was measured and quantified. It can represent a larger empirical data set if linked to other data points or trends, but alone it does not inherently do so. The distinction between anecdotal and empirical often hinges on context, methodology, and generalization ability, not just the existence of a single measure event. Your nuanced point helps clarify that not all one-off experiences are anecdotal, and some can indeed contribute to empirical evidence under the right conditions. So I know this was a little lengthy of a video and it just really didn't prove anything, but it actually proved something, right? It proved that one, don't just listen to Grok or the AI when, oh no, that's anecdotal evidence and that right there. And no, you have to actually say, well, what measurement do you use to actually label something as anecdotal, empirical, whatever? What criterion are we using? I said criteria. I know I'm from the South. But listen, so what criterion are we using to actually label something or categorize something of something? And now does what I'm offering fit said criteria? Because a lot of times what we're actually offering or asking fits the criteria, and you're labeling it something else. So why doesn't it fit that criteria? That's a valid question and point. And a lot of times, a lot of us, this is why they say free thinkers are dangerous, and this is why you in real life you have to be able to have civil discourse and debate, ladies and gentlemen. You have to, because we'll go through life just believing something, and oh, everybody just says that, and we just take it for granted as what it is. But no, that's actually not that. If you actually say, well, this is the measure I gauge it to call it one of those, and it either does meet that criterion or it doesn't meet that criterion. So now let's label it something else. For instance, in calling this anecdotal, which it was not, because it's empirical, the evidence that I brought forth was measured, was gauged, was quantified, and then we could actually see the ramifications of what happened. Even though it was a one-off, it met all criterion to be considered empirical. So now when we're having these conversations with people, and now I give you a one-off experience that meet all said criterion, understand something. My one-off experience can still be empirical and not just anecdotal, especially if it represents a larger data set or subset of information which can be quantified. As always, ladies and gentlemen, y'all stay positive, y'all stay productive. Remember, local elections are more important than national elections, but dollars are stronger than votes. They won't stop until we stop them. Liberation comes at a cost. Who's willing to pay for it?